Welcome everybody to chapter 7. This chapter is going to be focused on activity-based costing, ABC costing. So we're going to just start right away. This is the last chapter prior to the midterm. Chapters 1 through 7 will comprise the midterm. Okay. So what is activity-based costing? Well, it's a method that's designed to provide managers with cost information for strategic decisions that potentially can affect capacity. It's ordinarily used as a supplement to rather than a replacement for the company's normal costing system. So we're going to take this chapter and really look at how this activity-based costing works and how it's different. So in ABC costing, non-manufacturing as well as manufacturing costs can be assigned to products, but only on a cause and effect basis. ABC systems can assign sales commissions, shipping costs, and warranty repair costs to specific products. Some manufacturing costs can be excluded from product costs. So ABC excludes organization sustaining costs and idle capacity costs from product costs. ABC differs from traditional cost accounting because numerous overhead cost pools are used. So you can have plant-wide rates, overhead rates, you can have departmental overhead rates, and you can have activity-based costing. So each of these activity-based costing pools has its own unique measure of activity, but traditional cost systems usually rely on direct labor hours or direct machine hours, whichever drives the cost, to allocate all overhead costs to product costs. Direct labor and machine hours work correctly when changes in the quantity of the base are correlated with changes in the overhead costs being assigned using the base. So as you see here in this blue, we know it's common to use either direct labor or machine, but I guess when you just rely on that solely, it's become under a little more scrutiny because they've been moving in opposite directions since the variety of products produced have increased with companies. So an activity is an event that causes the consumption of overhead resources. The activity cost pool is like a bucket in which costs related to a single activity measure get accumulated. Now, this activity measure becomes the allocation base in activity-based costing systems. This is going to be the cost driver. This cost driver we call an activity measure. The two types are going to be what we call the transaction driver or the duration driver. The transaction driver is a simple count of the number of times an activity occurs, while the duration driver is a measure of the amount of time needed for an activity. With a traditional cost system, they rely on allocation bases that are driven either by the volume of the production. But with ABC, we're going to look at 5 levels of activity that really don't relate to the volume of units that are being produced. We're going to look at a unit level activity, a batch level activity, customer levels of activity, organization sustaining activity, and product level activities. These are the 5 classifications that are going to be broken down. So, to really implement ABC, activity-based costing, management really needs to support it. If management doesn't have the gumption to support it, it's not going to happen. And if employees continue to be evaluated and rewarding using a traditional based cost data, then they're going to get the message that ABC's not important and they'll end up abandoning it. Cross-functional teams need to be created that possess knowledge of how these operations are important in designing this ABC system. It's more work, guys. This ABC system is more work. It's beneficial, but it's costly and it's more work. People have to be sold on it, is basically what this is saying. So, in order to implement this ABC, let's look at an example. Baxter Battery Company. Baxter makes 2 types of automobile batteries, Sure Start and Long Life. Sure Start's the standard battery, Long Life's the deluxe battery. In this income statement, Baxter reported its first loss ever. So the ABC team selected the following activity pools and activity measures. You see here, the activity pool of customer orders are going to be measured by the number of customer orders. That makes sense. The activity pool of design changes will be measured by the number of design changes. The activity pool, cost pool of order size is going to be measured by the number of machine hours. The activity pool of customer relations will be measured by the number of active customers. And then any other activity pools measure is not applicable. They're just opening up an extra option there. So, customer orders assigned all costs of resources that are consumed by taking and processing customer orders. Design changes assigned all costs of resources consumed by customer requested design changes. Order size assigned all cost of resources consumed as a consequence of the number of units produced. Customer relations assigned all costs associated with maintaining relations with customers. And then any other would be any organization sustaining costs or unused capacity costs. So let's look at this exercise 7.1. The following activities occur at Greenwich Corporation, a company that manufactures a variety of products. We're going to classify each of these activities above as either a unit level, a batch level, a product level, or organization sustaining activity. So I'm going to give you a couple minutes to look at this. I'll be right back. So guys, let's look at this. Receive raw materials from, oh, my little girl, excuse me 1 second here. Ooh. So receive raw materials from suppliers. Is this a unit level, batch level, product level, or organization sustaining activity? Here we would show this to see if it would be a batch level. What about managing parts inventory? That would be a product level. Doing rough milling work on products would be at a unit level. Interview and process new employees in the personnel department would be organizational sustaining. Designing new products would be at a product level. Perform periodic preventative maintenance on general use equipment, organization sustaining. Use the general factory building, organization sustaining. Issue purchase orders for a job, batch level. Okay. So various activities at Ming Corporation, a manufacturing company, are listed below. Each activity has been classified as a unit level, batch level, product level, or customer level activity. So what we're going to do is finish this table by providing an example of an activity measure for each activity. Okay? So guys, I want you to take a moment. I want everyone in here. There's 21 of you. I want every one of you to come up with an example. So for example, let me just go to my participants here. Cheyenne, Connor, and Jack, I want you to take the first one. I want Jackie, Jerusha, and Jessica to take the second one. June, Kayla, and Courtney take the third one. Kyle and Lacora take the fourth one. Madeline, McKenna, and Nazra take the fifth one. The sixth one, Nathan and Sam and Sarah Simmons. Sixth one, Sumer and Tao. And Zeba, I want you to attempt to take the last one, okay? So I want everyone to try. Now, guys, this isn't about right or wrong. This is about participating. Just try to think of what an example of an activity that would be measured for each one of these. Guys, if you just cannot do it, then you know what? If you can't do it, you just say, Nancy, I'm passing. I'm passing. This is not about putting pressure on you. I'm just trying to get some participation. However, if it just totally freaks you out, you don't have to answer at all. Okay, guys? This is just to try to get some stimulated conversation instead of hearing just my voice. So, guys, direct labor workers assemble a product. This is at a unit level of activity. Can you think of an example of direct labor workers assembling a product? So I have one person say, Madeline says, number of bills sent. That's a good one. Anyone else? Well, how about an example, number of bills sent, or what they're saying here is direct labor hours. To assemble a product, direct labor hours. Okay. Next one. Products are designed by engineers. That's the activity. What would be an example of that activity? Number of products designed. That sounds good to me. Number of new products designed, or hours of design time. Excellent, guys. Hours of design time. Awesome. Next, equipment is set up. We know this is a batch level of activity. What would be an example of measuring these? The number of setups, the setup hours, number of equipment is set up. Good. Excellent. Next, machines are used to shape and cut materials. Unit machine hours, Kyle said too. Exactly. Number of units processed and the machine hours. Monthly bills are sent out to regular customers. Number of bills sent, or even the time spent doing those. Materials are moved from the receiving dock to production lines. Number of hours to move to materials. Totally. Time spent moving the materials, or number of loads transferred. And then last, all completed units are inspected for defects. Number of units inspected, or the inspection hours, guys. In all cases except for direct labor, 2 activity measures are listed. The first is what they call a transaction driver, and the second is the duration driver. Transaction drivers are simple counts of the number of times an activity occurs. And duration drivers are measures of the amount of time required to perform an activity, such as the time spent moving materials. In general, duration drivers are more accurate measures of the consumption of resources than transaction drivers, but they take more effort to record them. So now we're going to look at assigning costs to cost pools using a first stage allocation. So here we've got various overhead costs at the battery place. We've got in the production department, in the general administrative department, and then the marketing department. Then we've got direct materials, direct labor, and shipping here get excluded because Baxter Battery's existing cost system can directly trace these costs to products or to customer orders. Baxter, the following distribution of resource consumption across activity cost pools is then determined. So they look at the percent of time on customer orders, the percent of time on design changes, the percent of time on order size, the percent of time on customer relations, and any other, and they should all total the 100%. So you see here, indirect factory wages, we get the total amount of $6 million, but the amount consumed by customer orders came up with a percent. We're going to take that percent times the total indirect factory wages to come up with the amount that goes to customer orders. We'll do the same with all of these. We have the total of factory equipment depreciation, but related to customer orders, if 20% is consumed by that, we'll take that ratio times the whole dollar amount to earmark the amount we're going to put towards factory equipment depreciation. And we do it down the row here to where then we have our activity pools and we can see the total costs per the activity pools. So if we look here at exercise 7.7, the operations vice president of Security Home Bank has been interested in investigating the efficiency of the bank's operations. She's been particularly concerned about the cost of handling routine transactions at the bank and would like to compare these costs at the bank's various branches. If the branches with the most efficient operations can be identified, then their methods can be studied and replicated elsewhere. While the bank maintains meticulous records of wages and other costs, there have been no attempts so far to show how those costs are related to the various services provided by the bank. The operations vice president has asked your help in conducting an activity-based costing study of bank operations. In particular, she wants to know the cost of opening an account, the cost of processing deposits and withdrawals, and the cost of processing other customer transactions. So the Westfield branch has given the following cost data. Virtually all other costs of the branch, the rent, depreciation, utilities, are organization sustaining costs that can't be meaningfully assigned to individual customer transactions, such as depositing checks. In addition to the cost data shown above, the employees of the Westfield branch have been interviewed concerning how their time was distributed last year across the activities included in the activity-based costing study. The results of those interviews appear on the next slide. So it shows us the percent of time tellers are opening accounts, the percent of time tellers are processing deposits and withdrawals, or 20% they're processing other transactions of customers. And then the same thing holds true with the assistant branch manager and the branch manager. Our job here is to prepare the first stage allocation for the activity-based costing study. So you see here, if teller wages are $160,000 and if 160,000 of the wages and 65% are going to processing deposits and withdrawals, then that amount is at 104,000. You see how they determine that? So this is the process of allocating the various costs to the activity pools. Okay? Does that make sense? I'll just keep that on there for a minute. Now, to compute the rates for cost pools, the ABC team determines that Baxter Battery will have these total activities for each activity cost pool. They will show you the number of customer orders, the design changes, the machine hours, and the number of customers served. So what happens now is the team can compute the individual activity rates by dividing the total cost for each activity by the total activity levels. So you see here, if the customer orders total cost is $4,520,000 and we've got 10,000 orders, we can figure out the cost per order. Okay. So the direct materials, the direct labor, and the shipping costs can all be traced to products, customer orders, or customers. Now, these overhead costs, we can try to determine with these overhead costs the allocation, what we call the first stage allocation, to the various activities. Then, in the second stage allocation, we can come up with the cost per order, cost per change. Okay. So exercise 7-8. The manager, let me just see who's text or saying something. Yes. Oh, I guess I didn't have anything there. The manager of the Westfield branch of Security Home Bank has provided the following data concerning the transactions of the branch during the past year. We've got a number of new accounts open. The activity is opening accounts. The activity is how many new accounts were opened. An activity of processing deposits and withdrawals. We have 100,000 deposits and withdrawals processed. The activity processing other customer transactions, we show 5,000 other customer transactions were processed. Then we have the lowest costs reported by other branches for these activities. So we've got opening accounts, $26.75 per new account. Processing deposits and withdrawals, we've got $1.24 per deposit or withdrawal. And then processing other customer transactions from other branches, we've got $11.86, the lowest cost per other customer transactions. So using the first stage allocation from the previous exercise and the data on the previous slide, compute the activity rates for the activity-based costing system. So as you see here, based on the costs here, using that first stage allocation, compute the activity rates. If we have a cost of $23,250 for opening accounts, and we've got 500 accounts that are opened, we can average the cost per account opened. Or if we have the amount for processing deposits and withdrawals, and we know the number of deposits or withdrawals, we can calculate the activity rate per deposit or per withdrawal. Same with other customer transactions. We can calculate the cost, the activity rate per other customer transaction. What do these results suggest concerning the operations at Westfield branch? Cost of opening an account at the Westfield branch of $46.50 is a lot higher than at the lowest cost branch of $26.75. The cost of processing deposits, though, and withdrawals is lower at the Westfield branch than it is at the lowest other branch, $1.08 versus $1.24. And then processing other customer transactions shows that it's higher at the Westfield branch versus at the lowest other branch. So again, this is just information that managers can utilize. Who knows why this is happening? It could be because costly salaries are maybe opening new accounts versus at the other places, maybe they don't use those higher salaries to open new accounts. What's this suggest regarding operations at the Westfield branch? It's hard to know, guys. You know, the information you get from these reports is only as good as the information that goes into creating these reports. So as it says here, inaccuracies in employee reports of the amount of time they devote to such activities can really give you false results. So it's hard to know, were maybe employees not keeping accurate time amounts of how much time they did for different things. Who knows? It says here the Westville branch may purposely spend more time with new customers in order to win their loyalty. The higher cost of opening new accounts at the Westville branch could be justified by future benefits of having more satisfied customers. Nevertheless, comparative studies of these costs of activities may provide a useful starting point for identifying best practices within a company and where improvements could possibly be made. So now the next objective, assign costs to a cost object using a second stage allocation. We've got two batteries, Sure Start and Long Life. Sure Start requires no new design. 800,000 batteries are ordered with 4,000 separate orders. And each Sure Start requires 36 minutes of machine time for a total of 480,000 machine hours. The other battery, Long Life, does require new design resources. 400,000 batteries are ordered with 6,000 separate orders. 4,000 custom designs are prepared. Each Long Life requires 48 minutes of machine time for a total of 320,000 machine hours. So as you see here, we've got the ABC total cost of $4,928,000. We've got the $7,832,000 overhead cost for Long Life. And then we've got the $9,240,000 that is not assigned, for a total of $22 million of total costs. Let's look at how Baxter's battery system works for just one of the 2,000 customers, Acme Auto Parts, who placed a total of 12 orders. Note that the 4 orders for Long Lives required a design change. So we have 8 orders for 60 Sure Starts per order and 4 orders for 50 Long Lives per order. We've got 480 Sure Starts required 288 machine hours, and 200 Long Lives require 160 machine hours. In this case, the customer orders, we've got the rates per activity, the number of the activities, to give us the total cost for just Acme Auto Part. So if we take the customer orders times the number of times they did it, the design changes, cost times the activity, number of times, the order size, the customer relations, we've got $12,916 assigned to Acme. There's another one, Durban Metal Products. The Republic of South Africa makes specialty metal parts used in applications ranging from the cutting edges of bulldozer blades to replacement parts for Land Rovers. The company uses an activity-based costing system for internal decision-making purposes. The company has 4 activity cost pools listed below. We've got here the order size, the customer orders, the product testing, and the selling. Those are our pools. We measure them by either the number of direct labor hours or customer orders testing hours for product testing, and sales calls for the selling activity pool. And then we've got our rates. The managing director of the company would like information concerning the cost of the recently completed order for heavy-duty trailer axles. The order required 200 direct labor hours, 4 hours of product testing, and 2 sales calls. What is the total overhead cost assigned to the order for heavy-duty trailer axles? I'm going to give you a couple minutes to think this one through. Okay. So if we know the order size here, let me just go back here. We see the activity rate $16.85 per direct labor hour. We see our customer orders $320 per order, $89 per testing hour, and $1,090 per sales call. So we are wanting to know the order required 200 direct labor hours, 4 hours of product testing, and 2 sales calls. So as you see here, 200 direct labor hours at our rate of $16.85 gives us our $33.70. Our customer orders, 1 order at $320 per customer order. Our 4 product testing hours at $89 per product testing hour. And then 2 sales calls. The total overhead cost on this order is $6,226. Now let's look at this to see ABC, how we compute product and customer margins. So the first step in computing product margins is to look at each product's sales and each of the product's direct cost data. So we've got our 2 different types of batteries here, our Sure Starts and our Long Lives. And then we have per battery, the direct materials, direct labor, and our shipping. Okay. The second step in looking at product margins is to incorporate the previously ABC cost assignments pertaining to each of these products. So we see here for Sure Starts and Long Lives, we've got the customer orders. We know Sure Start doesn't have any design changes. They all go to Long Lives. And then the order sizes costs, the order size costs. Okay. The third step is to deduct each product's direct and indirect costs from sales. So we take the direct materials, labor, shipping, customer orders, and order size to then come up with the product margin. You see here, the Sure Starts have a better margin than the Long Lives show based on this method. So the product margins can be reconciled with the company's net operating income, as you see here. Costs not assigned to products, the $3,080,000, and then the other of $6,160,000 gives us our total other costs of $9,240,000, which then brings into account the ultimate net operating loss for the company. So here you see, you got to look at the sales and the direct cost data to come up with, to begin with the margin. Then you're going to take those activity-based assignments, apply those. Then you're going to look at the customer margin by taking all the direct and indirect cost from its sales. So in looking at product margins, we've got to look at the direct cost per product. Then, again, in looking at product margins, we've got to look at computing a plant-wide overhead rate. So we're taking all the overhead, dividing that by the total machine hours to come up with a cost per machine hour. In this case, $17.50. Then we're going to take our machine hours per sure starts, machine hours per long lives to calculate the manufacturing overhead to each one of these products. Then from here, we have to compute the product margins. You see here, sure starts, if we show the product margin at $6,900,000 and long lives at $2,100,000, then we've got to add into that our shipping, marketing, and general and admin. That's $11 million to give us our $2 million loss. So when we look at the traditional costing method versus ABC, when we look at the margins based on traditional, sure starts got $6,900,000, long lives are sitting at $2,100,000. But if we look at product margins using activity-based costing, you see they're very different. Product margins using activity-based is $8,372,000. That's a difference of $1,472,000. But the biggest change are the long lives. If we look at our margins based on the ABC method, you see it's a losing deal. You see here, using the traditional method, it undercosts the long lives and shows a higher margin for this product than we do under activity-based. There are three reasons why the reported product margins for the two costing systems differ. Traditional costing allocates all manufacturing overhead to products. But guys, the ABC costing only assigns manufacturing overhead costs consumed by products to those products. Traditional costing allocates all manufacturing overhead using volume-related allocation-based, but ABC uses non-volume related allocation-based. Traditional costing doesn't look into selling and admin expenses, since those are period expenses. But ABC costing directly traces shipping costs to products, and it includes non-manufacturing overhead costs caused by products in the activity cost pools that are assigned to products. So as you see here, activity-based management is used in relation to other methods. It helps see where improvements can be made. And activity rates, ABC rates, can provide valuable understanding concerning where there's waste and where there's need for improvement. Most companies do not use ABC for external reporting because external reports aren't as detailed. It's difficult to make changes to a company's accounting system, and it doesn't conform to generally accepted accounting principles. Now, ABC's got its limits. It costs money to implement it. The desire is to fully allocate all costs to products. You can't always do that. There can be misinterpretation of numbers that aren't familiar. And there's resistance to unfamiliar reports. You got to use the traditional method anyway, or another method anyway, since it doesn't conform to generally accepted accounting principles. So it's redundant. Here's another problem, guys. Thermal rising makes paragliders for sale through specialty sporting goods stores. The company has a standard paraglider model, but also makes custom designed paragliders. Management's designed an activity-based costing system with the following activity cost pools and activity rates. Management would like an analysis of the profitability of a particular customer. Big Sky Outfitters has ordered the following products over the last 12 months. So the company's direct labor rate is $19.50 per hour. Using the company's activity-based costing system, compute the customer margin of Big Sky Outfitters. So we see here the number of gliders, the standard model and the custom design, number of orders, number of custom designs, direct labor hours per glider, selling price, and direct material cost per glider. Okay. Using the company's activity-based, compute the customer margin of Big Sky Outfitters. So we've got sales, $1,850 per standard model at 20 of them, and then $2,400 per custom glider at 3 of those, for total sales of $44,200. We look at the costs, $564 per standard, 20, $634 times 3 gives us cost of $13,182. Then our direct labor hours of 1950 times 26.35 direct labor hours per standard model and 20 standard times 20 standard model gliders. And then we've got our 1950 per direct labor hour times our custom gliders at 3 of them. Then we have to add the supporting direct labor, 26 per direct labor hour times the 26.35 direct labor hours for the standard and 28 for the custom. Then our order processing, custom designing, and customer service shows our margin. When you take all that into account, the margin is $1,144. Here's another one for you guys. Advanced Products Corporation has supplied the following data from its activity-based costing system. We've got our costs. We show our cost pools supporting direct labor, showing the number of direct labor hours, the order processing, number of customer orders, customer support, number of customers, and other. Then we show how the percent of cost is linked to supporting direct labor or processing or customer support. And it's telling us Advanced Products completed one order for a new customer, Shenzhen Enterprises. This customer did not order any other products during the year. And so it tells us the number of units ordered, the direct labor hours, selling price, direct materials, and our direct labor. Using Exhibit 7.6 as a guide, prepare a report showing the first stage allocations of overhead costs to the activity cost pools. Using Exhibit 7.7 as a guide, compute the activity rates for the activity cost pools, calculate the total overhead costs for the order, and then using Exhibit 7.12, calculate the customer margin. So the first part we're going to look at in the first stage allocations, we're going to take the total costs and we're going to assign the cost to the various activity pools. So direct labor support is 120,000 by taking the 40% times the total cost. And then we do the same with the other overhead costs, a total of 100. We assign those to the various pools. The activity rates we can see are direct labor, supporting direct labor of 150,000 divided by our direct labor hours gives us 750 per direct labor hour. The order processing is 250 per order. And the customer support is 400 per customer. Calculate the total overhead costs for the order from Shenzhen Enterprises. You see here, 2 direct labor hours per unit times 10 units gives us how we're calculating the supporting direct labor, the activity piece. But if we take the rates by the activity, we come up with our total of $800 in cost. So here you see, based on the sales, if we take the direct materials, direct labor, then the support of direct labor overhead, the order processing overhead, and customer support overhead, we have a minus $100 customer margin for this particular company. So guys, this is the end of activity-based costing. What I'd like to do now is show you your homework for chapter 7. So you see here 3 problems. You've got high-tech manufacturing has 2 industrial component parts. And it shows you the income statement using absorption costing. Then it tells you the how much it's sold, the parts for each of the parts, and then shows you the traditional costing system. Then it tells you the company's created an activity-based costing system to evaluate the profitability of its products. High-Tech's ABC implementation team concluded that $50,000 and $100,000 of the company's advertising expenses could be directly traced to B300 and T500. The remainder of the selling and admin expenses was organization sustaining. The ABC team also distributed the company's manufacturing overhead to 4 activities as shown below. So it wants you to compute the product margins for the 2 products under traditional costing and then under activity-based. Okay, so this will help you, the product margins for under the first method and under activity-based costing. I'll let you do the third one on your own. Next, this one wants you, just like we did on these problems, perform the first stage allocation, compute activity rates, using those rates, determine the total cost and the average cost per 1,000 square feet of each of the following jobs. Pretty straightforward here. I'll give you your totals here and your totals here. And I'll let you do the other one on your own. And last, we've got Gallatin carpet cleaning. They want you again to do the first stage allocation cost, compute the activity rates. The company recently completed a big carpet job. The revenue from flying in ranch was 140. 500 square feet at $28 per 100 square feet. Calculate the customer margin earned. So I'm going to give you this requirement for 27.25, and you would figure that out here. The margin earned on each job, sales, you've got your costs with a minus 27.25. in the margin. Okay? Let you take pictures of those. So, guys, I'm going to end the recording for chapter 7.